Hello, this is Yogeshwar 7000 again, and I'm back with another interesting topic in Vedic astrology today. And as a matter of fact, today we'll be continuing with our discussions on Sun in various houses. And today we'll be talking about Sun in the 11th house, as mentioned to us by the ancient scriptures, or as mentioned in the ancient scriptures, rather. So I keep reminding my viewers that all my videos are a direct reference to the ancient scriptures. It's not a figment of imagination of any modern day astrologer, because what happens is if you don't refer to the ancient scriptures, it gets filtered through one astrologer to another astrologer to the third astrologer. It's not that they're not accurate, but by default the knowledge gets filtered, and the pure unadulterated words which the rishis, the Maharishis, the sages have mentioned do not come to us. So I make it a point to go directly to the ancient scriptures and then give you whatever I find out based on the ancient scriptures, and also based on my own experiences with analyzing various charts, which I have been doing for several years now. So today we'll be talking about the placement of the planet Sun in the 11th house. In the earlier videos we have discussed Sun's placement in the 10th house, and today we'll discuss how Sun behaves if it is in the 11th house. Just a word of caution, we're not talking about transits or gochara as it's called in Sanskrit. We are talking about in case a person is born and Sun is placed in his birth chart and in the 11th house, then what are the effects Sun is going to give that person. So Sun, as we know, it's a Sattvic planet, but at the same time it's kind of a cruel planet as well. Some astrologers call it malefic, but it's definitely a cruel planet. It's not a soft planet like Moon, and Sun can make other planets combust if the other planets come under its influence. So it's a very, very hot, it's a very cruel, it's a very powerful planet. All the planets go around it. And as per Vedic astrology, we know that Sun has a movement as well, but as per astronomy, we know Sun is static and all the other planets go around it. Okay, so what do the ancient scriptures say about Sun in the 11th house is that the person will have a great amount of wealth coming in from agriculture operations. Now, in today's day and age, agriculturists or farmers are not considered to be very wealthy. And why is that? Because the yugas have changed, the times have changed. In the ancient times, when these shlokas and sutras came into existence, the highest place was given to people who were agriculturists or who were farmers. That was considered to be extremely I would say in terms of their prestige, very prestigious occupation was being a farmer or being an agriculturist. So perhaps that's the reason why these sutras have mentioned that. And there's a saying in Sanskrit earlier days that the best profession to do is to be an agriculturist or to be doing farming. The second best is doing business. The third best is getting a job, and the fourth best and the last is not doing anything and being or surviving on other people's money or borrowing or begging from other people. So the highest esteem or the highest prestige was given to people who are agriculturists. So, and that's the reason why probably Sun was given such importance, and that's the reason why the ancient sutras and the shlokas say that Sun placed in the 11th house will make him very wealthy, and he's gonna get this wealth, substantial income, that's what has been mentioned, from farming operations. And today, especially in places like India, we see farmers are committing suicide, and people go for coveted jobs, and they try to get jobs where they can get a secure career and a lifestyle based on a good job. But in earlier days and times, job was not considered to be good. It was, as a matter of fact, they would say that, oh well, he's in a job, poor guy, he's in a job, and a person who was in business or an agriculturist got more prestige as far as the hierarchy is concerned. Anyways, so this is the first point which the ancient scriptures say, and they also say, so in other words, sun in the 11th house is a good position. That's what it means. Also, malefics in the 11th house generally give good effects, and like I said, sun, although it's not a malefic, it's considered to be a cruel and a hot planet, so it will give similar results. Also, very specifically, the ancient scriptures are mentioning that in the 25th year of that person whose sun is in the 11th house, he will acquire conveyances. And of course, in ancient times there were no cars there, but it could be a horse cart, it could be a horse, it could be a chariot, it could be anything. But in the 25th year, which is 24 plus, it is very specifically mentioned that he will acquire conveyances. And once again, I would like to qualify this statement that please do not jump to any conclusion. Look at the other side of the birth chart, do a complete analysis, see what conjunctions are there with sun, see what aspects are there on the planet sun, see the strength of the sun, so on and so forth. What kind of a charakaraka sun becomes as per the Gemini principles. So, but in general terms, the ancient scriptures are very specifically mentioning that between the 24th and the 25, which is the 25th year, he will acquire conveyances, good conveyances. And also it's mentioned that if a person's sun is in the 11th house, by the use of his wealth and diplomatic talk, so he's supposed to be speaking very diplomatically, and he can use his wealth to his advantage, and because of these two qualities he will be able to acquire more and more wealth. So sun's placement, always remember, look at a birth chart, see if sun is placed in the 11th house, and if there are no major malefic influences, if the strength of the sun is good, and especially if there's a benefic influence on the planet sun, always think that this person will be wealthy. He will gain money from various sources. Here, like I said, it's mentioned agriculture, but it may not be agriculture, it could be any kind of a source where he'll get money. And because of the use of his wealth and his diplomatic talk, he's considered to be a diplomatic talking person, he will be able to acquire more wealth. Okay, now also it's mentioned that he will have cordial relationship with his employees. Okay, so sun's placement in the 11th house will have cordial relationship with his employees. Why is that mentioned? Because in certain scriptures it's mentioned that employees is ruled by the 6th house, and certain scriptures is mentioned that employees is ruled by the 3rd house itself. So 11th house and the 3rd house connection, I'm just trying to think what would be the connection there, because sun's aspect is directly on the 5th house, so it's neither on the 6th house or the 3rd house, but yet it is mentioned that he will have very, very good cordial relationship with his employees. He'll have good employees, in other words. Now there's one negative thing which is mentioned here, that he will suffer at one point of his life a very, very serious kind of a fever. Okay, but like I said, don't jump to a conclusion. Look at the aspects. If they are benefic aspects, the results may not be that malefic or that negative. And also look at what the dispositor of sun is, whether it's placed in its own sign, or whether it's been aspected by malefics. So all these factors do make a difference in what kind of place it occupies as far as the Charakaraka concept as per Gemini principles is concerned. But yes, it's mentioned that in one point of his life he is going to suffer a very serious kind of fever. It's mentioned very, very clearly. And once again, it's mentioned if sun is conjunct with the malefic, he will incur a lot of expenditure. And once again, he will not acquire conveyances. So here, if you just remember a moment ago, I just mentioned that the scriptures say very clearly that in the 25th year, he will acquire conveyances. He will acquire conveyances. But in case sun is sitting with a malefic, he will not acquire any conveyances, or he will not have any vehicles, or in fact he will not have a vehicle. He may have to walk. I mean, as per the ancient scriptures. So in earlier times he might have had to walk. Today, of course, there are different ways and means of transportation, but that's the situation, that sun with the malefic is in the 11th house is not a good combination if it's sitting with the malefic in the 11th house. Okay, again, it's mentioned if sun is in its own sign of Leo, of course, which is for the Scorpio, for the Libra ascendant, or it is exalted, which is for the Gemini ascendant, because it gets exalted in the zodiac sign of Aries. He will have extremely immense, extreme wealth or immense wealth. Okay, he will be extremely rich. So look out for that combination of astrologers if you're doing a reading. And if there are no major malefic influences, then you see extreme wealth here in the 11th house. Now, another very important point has been mentioned here, that in case Sun is in conjunction with the Lord of the 4th house, okay, he will have multiple sources of income. So look at the 4th house. If Sun is in conjunction with the 4th house, let's see, with the 4th house Lord. So let's consider the example when Sun is exalted. If Sun is exalted in the 11th house, the Lord of the ascendant is Mercury, and then the 4th house will become 3, 4, 5, 6, again Mercury. So if in case Mercury and Sun are sitting together in the 11th house, then he will have many sources of income, and he will acquire vehicles and conveyances, and also be extremely fortunate and extremely rich. Okay, look out for this combination. Very important. It's kind of a Raja Yoga, where he'll acquire good wealth. Okay, now also there are other views also, because not all astrologers come to a consensus. Not all yogis and all rishis come to a consensus. So a few astrologers, or a few scholars rather, because I'm not considering any modern day astrologer, at least until 1,000 years, until 1,000 years in recent times. I do not consider them. Not that I'm not kind of saying that they are not accurate. They may be very accurate, but I go back to the basics. At least 1,000 years back. So some scholars have mentioned that Sun in the 11th will make the person born wealthy. So it's not that he will acquire wealth in the 25th year, or acquire conveyances in the 25th year, as it's been mentioned, but he'll be born wealthy. He could be born in a royal family. He could be born wealthy. And he will be extremely long-lived. Now, what is the connection of the planet Sun sitting in 11th house with the long life? That's a good question, but it's been mentioned by certain very renowned scholars, like I said, at least 1,000 years back. And he is going to be of extremely high status. He's going to have very high status in society. But once again, look at the malefic influences in terms of an aspect, in terms of conjunction, and so on and so forth. There's one negative thing which also comes as the observation of one of the known scholars, is that although he will accumulate wealth and be powerful, he's going to hate others. And he may be without servants, because he is not going to treat his servants well. So here there's a slight contradiction here. Earlier we mentioned, or we discussed rather, that he will have servant and he will have good servants, but a few scholars feel that although he'll accumulate wealth and be powerful, he's going to hate others and be without servants. And although he'll be successful, again, one of the scholars is very clear on this point, that he is going to acquire wealth through the king, because we can, even logically we can say Sun is the king, and if Sun is sitting in the 11th house, he will acquire wealth through the king. And in modern day times, of course, there are no kings other than places like Saudi Arabia, but he could acquire wealth from the government, because Sun also represents government, although sometimes because of democratic rules, because of sovereign states, Saturn comes into play. But generally, government is synonymous with the planet Sun. So one of the scholars has mentioned that he will acquire wealth from the king, which can be interpreted that he will acquire wealth through government contracts, or the government, or he may be a very highly placed government official, so on and so forth. And he will possess many kinds of wealth. And one of the scholars have even mentioned that he will destroy his enemies by his valor. But in matters of children, he will be very unhappy, and that makes a lot of sense, because 11th house is right opposite to the 5th house, and Sun, being a very cruel planet, very hot planet, can give a direct aspect to the 5th house, which can be a problematic situation as far as children are concerned. So he's very clear. He says he'll acquire wealth through the king, but at the same time he will although he'll destroy his enemies by his valor, but he'll be unhappy in matters of children. So this was a little discussion of the placement of sun in the 11th house, and once again it's coming directly from the ancient scriptures, so I will request you to have firm faith and belief in it. Try and test it out in various charts, and in your comment section you're welcome to put in your comments. And in the meanwhile, I will recommend subscribe to my channel, check out my website, there is a link below, and I will see you with an interesting topic in Vedic astrology very soon. Goodbye.